Donald Trump just blinked on tariffs. And he didn't do it because of Democrats. He didn't do it because of Sleepy Joe. It's not because of the fake news media. The thing that has finally made Donald Trump flinch on tariffs is that a number of CEOs from Walmart, Target, Home Depot started saying to Trump's face with tears in their eyes, "Sir, we are 2 weeks from triggering empty shelves in the United States of America." Remember how Trump would say that when Obama took over, the cupboards were bare? Obama! Yeah, that wasn't true. But we are now in 2025 in a situation where the president is being warned by billionaire retailers that if he keeps going with the tariff roulette, America would walk into stores and find fewer and fewer goods on the shelves.
That's the emotional spin, but it's not backed by hard evidence. What actually happened was an adjustment, not a surrender. Tariffs were always intended to be part of a negotiation, not a permanent fixture at sky-high levels. Trump has said this himself. He uses them as leverage to bring others to the table. When that happens, and talks progress, adjustments follow. That's how bargaining works. Did CEOs voice concerns? Probably. But that doesn't mean Trump caved. It means he listened, recalibrated, and stayed focused on the larger goal, reducing dependence on countries like China and restoring industrial self-reliance. That's not blinking. That's leadership with flexibility, not rigidity for ego's sake. There's no verifiable report of CEOs crying in the White House. This is drama for clicks. What's factual? Trump has always treated tariffs as negotiation tools, not permanent punishments. He said it himself. Tariffs are a negotiation tool. You put them on, then you use them to get a better deal. Then you take them off. Trump interview, Fox Business, June 25, 2020. Also, in 2019, when facing pressure during U.S.-China talks, Trump delayed tariffs to avoid hurting American consumers before the holidays. That's strategic timing, not surrender. New York Times, December 13, 2019. So, no, he didn't blink. He adjusted because he's thinking long game, not just next week's shelf inventory. Now, they claim Trump blinked on tariffs because a few CEOs got nervous. But what they're calling panic, Trump has always called strategy. Tariffs were never the endgame. They were the leverage. Don't take it from me. Listen to Steve Moore, an economist who doesn't even like tariffs, explain why Trump used them effectively.
Well, Trump, you don't like tariffs.
I'm not a big fan of them. And look, I'm a free trader. I knew Milton Friedman. Trump has used tariffs pretty effectively as a negotiating tool in his first term. And so far, he's done the same with a lot of these countries. I think it's a little dangerous strategy because I don't think we want to see a trade war. It is true that tariffs will cause prices that will rise. But I think in the end of the day, Trump is such a master negotiator that I think he will prevail.
That's the point. It's not about chaos. It's calculated pressure. And if CEOs are panicking, it's probably because they've gotten too comfortable with offshore profits, not because the economy is crumbling.
Not a projection. This is sort of like a 2-week countdown to chaos that we've now learned Donald Trump has been given. Now, before the emergency CEO summit, I guess we would call it, Trump was busy torching the markets with his usual bravado, threatening to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell, announcing 245% tariffs on China, floating a plan to nuke every trade agreement on earth. And the result was that stocks collapsed, bonds and the dollar tanked, global investors fled for safety. And by the middle of this week, Donald Trump started pumping the brakes. Suddenly, Trump started saying, no, the tariffs on China are going to come down. The 145% tariffs were too high. Suddenly, no, Jerome Powell's job is very safe. I was never even thinking of firing Jerome Powell, despite posting to Truth Central that he should be fired. This is not strategy. This is panic management, crisis management.
Markets always react to bold moves. When Biden proposed a $6 trillion budget, the market dipped too. That's how it works. As for Powell, yes, Trump criticized him, publicly, loudly. But that's not panic, that's pressure. Previous presidents like Lyndon Johnson and Nixon privately pressured Fed chairs too. The difference? Trump did it with a megaphone. I'm not happy with the Fed. They're making a mistake because I have a gut, and my gut tells me more sometimes than anybody else's brain. Trump, October 2018. Was it chaotic? Sure, but Powell remained. The Fed remained independent, and Trump's threats never materialized. That's pressure politics, not economic collapse.
And what's truly disturbing is that this warning had to come at all. Because you would think that a president who is the best on business and the best on economics and just is so good on this stuff, this was Trump's main strength, we were told. You would think that a basic understanding of how modern supply chains work would be enough for Trump to know this is a bad idea, but it wasn't. And ultimately, it took three of America's biggest retailers to march into the White House and to say, with respect, sir, your policies could collapse the consumer economy in 2 weeks.
Again, this is based on unnamed sources and speculation. No official record confirms CEOs told Trump America was 14 days from collapse. What we do know is this. These CEOs, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, have heavily outsourced to China. Tariffs hurt their margins, not America's economy at large. Of course, they'd push back. Walmart imported over $49 billion in goods from China in 2018 alone. Economic Policy Institute, May 2019. Let's be honest, if your supply chain collapses from one price adjustment, you were never that stable to begin with. But, come on, these companies, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, they're not unstable. They've had tariffs built into their operating costs for years, or they've already negotiated pricing with their vendors. They knew this was coming. What they're doing now is what they've always done, protecting their bottom line, not yours. They're not concerned about your grocery bill or your family's budget. They're concerned about keeping their pockets full, even if that means outsourcing everything and pressuring the government to back off just to keep profits flowing. So let's not confuse a profit tantrum with an actual national emergency. Tariffs expose fragility so we can rebuild with resilience. That's the point.
So let's do a quick kind of recap of what this fiasco got us. We have the increased global tension and volatility as a result of this tariff scheme, which is putting us at odds with our traditional allies. We are pointing in the direction of higher consumer prices based on manufacturers saying we are going to have to increase the cost of our goods by X amount if this happens. We see declining and unstable financial markets, billions, maybe trillions erased from 401ks, with no measurable benefit to the American consumer or to American industry. Now, I am willing to concede.
Let's take that one bite at a time. Global tension? Trade negotiations are always tense. If allies are upset that we're finally standing up for ourselves economically, then maybe they weren't really acting like allies in the first place. Fair trade isn't supposed to mean America loses quietly while others profit off of us indefinitely. Higher prices? Yes, some prices go up short term. But that's the price of rebuilding what we gave away for cheap manufacturing capacity, supply chain resilience, and national leverage. It's like repairing a house. There's a cost up front, but the roof doesn't cave in later. 401ks collapsed? Let's stop pretending like the stock market hasn't always been volatile. In fact, during Trump's first term, pre-COVID, the Dow rose by over 50% and 401ks grew, even with tariffs in place. U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, 2016 to 2019 GDP data. Forbes, why the stock market loved Trump's tariffs, August 2019. No measurable benefit? That's just false. The U.S.-China Phase 1 deal forced China to increase purchases of U.S. agricultural goods and highlighted major issues with IP theft, something no prior administration dared to confront seriously. USTR Phase 1 Agreement, January 2020. So no, it wasn't all pain, no gain. It was long overdue correction of a rigged game.
That Trump and others told us, it will take a while, right? It's not, there's going to be short-term pain for long-term gain, but no one is buying that. The economists were never buying it, but now the American people aren't buying it either. And we end up in this position where if there were to be a global crisis of any kind, bird flu or whatever, we are in a weakened position by straining these relationships. And so all of this so that Trump could pretend to be...
That's not an argument. It's wishful dismissal. Just because some economists on cable TV say they're not buying it doesn't mean the policy isn't working. In fact, some of the most respected independent economists have said that strategic, targeted tariffs can absolutely be effective if used with long-term goals in mind. Example: the Peterson Institute for International Economics, which is usually free trade-leaning, even admitted in 2020 that tariffs can be justified if they address market distortions or unfair practices. And as for the people not buying it, That's funny because polls consistently showed broad bipartisan support for bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., even if it meant paying a little more. Reuters/Ipsos poll. July 2020, 69% of Americans supported Buy American policies, even if prices were higher. So the idea that no one believes in long-term gain is just projection. A lot of Americans do believe in it. They're just tired of being told to sit down and shut up while their jobs go overseas. And here's the kicker: if we never accept short-term sacrifice, we'll always be someone else's customer, never a builder, never a leader. Trump's tariffs have made us weaker and less prepared for a real global crisis? This assertion overlooks the strategic intent behind the tariffs. The goal was to reduce dependency on foreign supply chains, particularly from nations that may not align with U.S. interests. By encouraging domestic production, the U.S. aims to be more self-reliant, especially in critical sectors. For instance, the Liberation Day tariffs announced in April 2025 were part of an initiative to bolster American manufacturing and correct trade imbalances. While these measures faced criticism, they were designed to strengthen the U.S. economy in the long term. Moreover, concerns about supply chain disruptions are not solely due to tariffs. Factors like global pandemics, geopolitical tensions, and natural disasters also play significant roles. Diversifying and strengthening domestic supply chains can enhance resilience against such unforeseen events. So, to recap, we've looked at the claims, walked through the facts, and added information that wasn't included in the original presentation, whether that omission was intentional or not. The goal here isn't to pick sides or discredit anyone. It's simply to step back and consider more of the picture. It's possible the presenter shared what they believed was most relevant, and if any context was left out, it may not have been intentional. We're not here to tell you what to think, just to offer additional angles that may not have been explored, so you can decide for yourself. In a world full of noise, it helps to slow down and ask, what really makes sense? What holds up when I think about it deeper? That's all.